I recently saw a social media post from a friend arguing the evils of the AR-15. The post contained a number of dramatic terms and statements that ranged from misleading to outright false. But I wouldn't really categorize this friend as anti-gun. So the post made me realize that people who might not otherwise have a dog in this fight are believing this stuff. And it gets them riled up. So I'm going to post the statement here, break it down, and then talk about what the AR-15 really is. The post read, "The AR-15 is a military-style assault rifle designed to kill as many people as possible in the least amount of time. It has no use for hunting or self-defense, yet we still allow civilians to own it." Well, there's a lot there, so let's break it down one at a time. Military style. Firearms have clear military use, and militaries often represent the single biggest contract buyers. So it's natural that new developments in the firearm industry are often marketed to militaries. The flintlock musket, the bolt-action rifle, the revolver are all technologies that were developed for and marketed to the world's militaries. You know that iconic cowboy gun, often called the Peacemaker? Well, its real name is the Single Action Army, and as the name implies, it was developed for and marketed to the U.S. military and adopted the year it was available. It's a military gun. The reality is that almost any firearm can be called a military-style weapon, and it renders the term meaningless. The irony is that while all the aforementioned technologies were adopted very soon after development, the semi-automatic rifle was not, and we'll touch on that later. The term assault rifle exists as a legal definition within certain legislation, and those definitions are often based on cosmetic features rather than function. But those definitions don't coincide with any industry definition that was used prior to such legislation existing. The term assault rifle comes from the World War II era STG-44, dubbed the Sturmgewehr, or assault rifle. The STG-44 wasn't earth-shaking. All of the technologies that it contained had existed prior, but the combination of traits and the tactics built around it proved effective. Its defining traits was that it was select fire, meaning it could fire either semi-automatic or fully automatic. It had a detachable magazine, and it was based on an intermediate cartridge. That is, a cartridge whose power and size lies between that of a pistol and a full-size rifle cartridge. Now, in the industry, they do sometimes use the term assault rifle to refer to guns that have all three of those traits. Now, the military M16 would qualify, but the civilian AR-15 is semi-auto only, meaning only one bullet is fired per pull of the trigger. Now, a lot of people have tried to take advantage of the public confusion between semi-auto and full auto to make it seem like assault weapon bans are trying to get rid of machine guns. But that's not the case. Machine guns have been regulated since 1934. Semi-auto has a clear and fixed definition, and the AR-15 is semi-auto, so only one bullet is fired per pull of the trigger. It is not a fully auto or a machine gun, and as such, it doesn't qualify as an assault rifle any more than this 1022, at least not outside of varying legislative definitions, often based on cosmetics. Now we come to my favorite. The AR-15 was designed to kill as many people as possible in the least amount of time. Actually, that's a task much better suited to bombs and explosives, and was not the design goal of the AR-15 or any other rifle for that matter. According to Eugene Stoner and Jim Sullivan, the designers of the AR-15, the goal was to reduce weight and felt recoil. And this was accomplished by the use of materials common to the aircraft industry and by the selection of an intermediate cartridge. Now, it's important to note that the selection of the 223 was made largely because it is the least powerful cartridge that was able to meet minimum military standards. Remember, they're trying to reduce weight and felt recoil here. And while it was considered adequately effective, it was significantly less effective than the 308 that it would replace. In fact, it's less powerful than most any common centerfire hunting round. Which brings us to the next statement. The AR-15 has no use in hunting or self-defense. Well, Stephen Williford would disagree. He used his AR-15 to stop the Texas church killer. AR-15s are the country's most popular rifle and have been for a while. They are often used in self-defense in the home. They're also a very common rifle for hunting varmints, predators, or invasive species such as wild hogs. Now, it is true that the AR-15's most common caliber, the .223, is banned from deer hunts in many states. But it's important to note that that's usually because the .223 does not meet those states' minimum standards for power. The .223 is considered inadequate for hunting deer in those states. So if you strip away all the propaganda, all the Orwellian terms, what is the AR-15 at its root? Well, the AR-15 is an intermediate cartridge, semi-automatic, magazine-fed rifle. It's liked for its good ergonomics, its versatility, and its modularity. But it's no more dangerous or deadly than any other magazine-fed semi-automatic. Now, some try to make the argument that civilians shouldn't be able to own any semi-automatic detachable box magazine rifle, which includes guns like this 1022. But they're unable to garner support for these arguments without the use of false or meaningless but scary sounding terms that we've been discussing. And that's really no surprise. You see, the semi-automatic detachable box magazine rifles, like this Winchester 1907, have been available to civilians for more than 100 years. In fact, civilians had them available and used them for more than 50 years before the U.S. military ever adopted such a rifle in 1959 with the M14. So while the AR-15 is a handy and versatile rifle, statements that try to separate it and make it sound scary by implying that it's particularly dangerous and deadly really fall into the realm of propaganda and are demonstrably false.